Okay, hello everyone again. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be basically taking what we took from the last lesson and we're going to be adding textures to it as well as putting surfaces on elements that we didn't unwrap. Now again, if you do take the time to unwrap everything, it will basically give you full control over all the different parts that you have. That being said, at least for this lesson, I'm looking for at least 3 objects to be unwrapped. I think that should be good enough for what we're doing now. Okay, so to get started, just want to briefly go again how we unwrapped all the different parts. So if you go to UV and UV editor, you can actually take a look at all your different meshes and basically see how they're changed. So for example, if I go to my eye, this is basically how this was unwrapped. If I go to my shirt, this is how this was unwrapped. And when we go to our head, this is how this is unwrapped. So definitely you can see that with each one, it was a little bit trickier as we progressed. But again, it's still way better than if we just try to go with an automatic unwrap, which we could get by just going to Create, Automatic, and oh good Lord, trying to get make sense of out of all this would be very, very difficult. Whereas here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Barely in the double digits, but technically it did get there. But at the very least, trying to texture some of this stuff is not going to be that bad. But I do want to at least show you how to approach this. And I'm not going to take too much time with this, as I do want to make sure that at least you have the general gist of this. Texturing, however, I'm fully confident that most of you should be able to do the basics of this. Okay, so to actually get the ball rolling, so to speak, you would go to, in your UV editor, select your object of choice, go to Image, and there should be an option here called UV Snapshot. And this is basically going to let you know where this is going to save to, how big it is, and the file type. Oh, and also what the edges are going to look like color-wise. I'd recommend, first of all, making this into a JPEG. Shouldn't need anything bigger than that. If you want to, you could go for something a little bit less lossy, say, for example, a PNG, TIFF, or Targa. But I'm going to be honest, I've usually used JPEG myself, haven't had that many problems, if any. Going to go to Browse, and while the images works out okay, the source images is better because this is where all your textures are supposed to be saved anyways. I'm going to call this first one I_UV. That's basically the where it's going and its designation, and I'm going to hit Save. So that's fine there, that's fine there. The size is accurate to what we need it to be, and you hit Apply. And with that one, you're done. So if I go to that a little bit later, which I'll show a little bit later, we can basically open that up with ease. Now, of course, I'm going to do the same thing with the shirt. Select the shirt, change it from IUV to shirt UV. All the other parts are the same. This is why hit and apply can be helpful for this. And always make sure you're in object mode when you do this, by the way. If you're in like vertices or anything else, if you basically don't see this, it's not going to come up properly. And I'm selecting the actual head. I'm going to call this head UV. Everything else looks fine. I'm going to hit apply. And that should be the last one. Now I can find out if this worked properly by going to Photoshop, go into File, go into Open, and yep, there it is. There's all my different parts, my eye UV, my head UV, my shirt UV. Now I'm just going to go to my eye first. And this is how it looks. As long as you make sure you're in object mode, it should come out without any problems. Okay. So it's up to you on how you want to approach the whole coloring for this. My recommendation is, again, we're going for cartoony, so we're not going to need to worry too much about lots of details and such. But still, I want to make sure I get a good general gist of what I have. And I could use the quick selection to basically select around the whole shebang. And by the way, I have the background layer selected for this. And again, since we're not going to see the outer corners over here, I'm not worried about that too much. I'm more worried about this. I'm going to call this eye white. And I should be able to just use a simple paint bucket And by the way, just a bit of a heads up, I do have the painting preset here. I usually would do that if I'm doing any special kind of painting, but this should be fine. And again, putting this as white, though, again, if you were trying to make this a little bit more realistic, you might add like a little bit of a hint of pink to that eye. Not a lot, but just a hint of it. So, I'm putting that right in. But I'm not going to keep that because, yeah, trying to cover the other areas is going to be a real pain in the butt if I do it that way. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off for now. And I'm going to zoom in. And this is one of the reasons why knowing your UVs can be really helpful. Because I know, in this case, this is the outer part of the pupil over here. This is the darker area of the pupil. And the rest of this is the color. Now, again, it might, and if you ever need to take a look again, then I'm going to take, then you can select the actual eye over here. Yep. And just see for yourself. So again, if I select over here, that's the darker part of the eye. This area is supposed to be the color. This area is supposed to be the color. This area is supposed to be the pupil. Now you might not get this right away, and I wouldn't blame you, but the more you play around with UVs, the more accustomed you'll be to working with them. So, something to consider. Now, once again, I'm just selecting around the pupil itself. Actually, if you really wanted to, before anything else, I'm deselecting. And I'm just using the quick selection to get around the general eye area. And at least for this quick selection, you'll find that some of these areas will be simple to select and other parts are going to be a little bit tricky. But I'm getting the general all area. Now that looks pretty nice. And I'm just going to fill that in with a simple black. Now you can choose to color your eye the way that I'm doing it. I'll leave that up to you. But I definitely would recommend at least having a pupil in there. I'll call this pupil in more. You'll see the reason momentarily. And just give this area a quick little, and this is a different layer by the way, give it a quick little fill. That should work just fine. I can always add more colors around if necessary, which it might be. I'm going to make one more little change, and this is going to be on top of here. So I'm going to use a quick selection again. Make sure that you're on the right layer for selecting. Nothing selected, that's good. I'm deselecting the little pupil area around here. This is where it gets tricky. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, I could put a little bit more refinement a little bit later, but I'm happy with what I'm seeing so far. I'll give her, let's see, something more of a brownish color. Yep, there we go. Let's see, maybe I could darken that up a little bit. That's what I like about the hue, saturation, and black. That helps out a ton. Happy about that. Okay, so, blink. And there's my eye. Now, of course, I could still go into some more details with this. Might want to actually go into the white and put my eye in here, but I think this should work out okay for now. Eventually, I will want to come back here and probably make adjustments and changes, but I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to rename this, and yes, I want to save it to my computer. It's in my source images for my demo. That's good. And I'm going to rename this from IUV to iColor. Keep it as a PSD for now. Now, if you want to save resources, you could always shrink down the size of the eye, but at least for now, I should be okay. Okay. So So let's see how this looks. Now a little refresher on how to put on textures on your mesh. You go to the Hypershade. Nice thing about where we are right now is the Hypershade should work out okay. Emphasis on the word should. Oh, thank goodness. As always, just because something should work doesn't mean it always will. But looks like we're pretty good. I'm going to put this as a blend. And again, I'd be doing this on both eyes because they're both unwrapped the same way. And let's see how this looks. So again, to add in color on your object, you select the color option over here. You hit the little checker box over here. You go to File. Now, just a bit of a heads up. There is an actual PSD option over here, but we don't need to get fancy with that yet. Just keep it on File for now. And then just put your eye color. And if you hit 6, you should see how this looks. Not too shabby. But this is one of the reasons why I had the extra color put in here, is it basically brings out this part of the eye. Now if I want to go a little further with this, I could. But I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing so far. Oh, and I'll tell you, adding in the color for the eye just really makes this pop out way better. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to do the texturing for the shirt. Before we go any further, I'm going to, probably shouldn't have closed that, but I'm going to save this as a new type of file. So instead of calling this unwrapping, I'm going to put this as texturing. It's always a good idea to have more than one version of your file. I've sadly had a couple students lose their progress because they only put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. But again, I change it up every so often to kind of avoid those situations. So yeah, I have my shirt. Just a little reminder on how this looks. We have a front and a back area over here. I'm not going to get too fancy with this, I got to admit. But I do want to add in a little bit of text on the chest area, or maybe even going a little bit down. We'll see. Or actually, no, strike that. Instead of the chest area, I'm going to put it on the back part over here. Okay, so closing this. Oop. And I am opening the shirt UV. And I'm going to just keep this semi-white. Actually, strike that. I'm going to make this gray. Because I'm going to have her kind of punkish. Now, it's up to you if you want to keep it within the areas that we have over here, or if you want to just add an entire color for the whole thing. Now, since I'm going to keep it semi-consistent, I think a whole color for the whole thing, and also to save us a little bit of time and such, might be a better choice for this. So, and just to add a little extra oomph to this, I'm also going to add a layer to add some scratches and such. So let's see, this is going to be black and white. This area I'm going to make black. Going to fill this in, and I'm going to see if I can add some scratches. I'm going to filter. And let's see if we can put in that dust and scratches over here. Yeah, not satisfied with it. Sometimes a little bit of experimentation is a good thing. So I'm going to go to the noise again. I'm going to add a little bit of a noise. That's more what I'm looking for. And if I go to where it says normal and I choose the one of the darken areas, specifically multiply seems to do pretty good. I got a very unique looking design here, so I'm pretty happy with that. And because the seam is usually going to be in the middle of the shirt, that's not unusual. It's going to look that way. Now, as I said before, I do want some text to be on here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of text on the back that says something. Let's see. So I'm just going to add in my text. And this is one of the reasons why it's a good idea to have these UVs in case you want to put some very specific parts to this. So the back I'm just going to put in fighter. And that is way too tiny, so I'm definitely going to need that to be way bigger. Let's see, maybe 150. I'm going to make this black. I could call this girl Punk Fighter. And I'm digging that. Okay, so that's basically how it looks. Again, ideally you'd want this to actually be only painted where we're going to need it. But that being said, if necessary, you could always take the original picture, put it above what I have over here, turn on the lighten mode. I'm going to put this as screen. Way better. And I can basically see what I'm doing. Then when it gets to the time to put on the textures and so on, I can turn this off temporarily. Give this a save. Save on my computer. Again, put this as color. And once again, going to my object mode, going into Hypershade. Hopefully it won't take so long this time. Now I'm going to put in a blend again. However, I'm going to turn down the specularity quite a bit and also actually name this, because you want to make sure that you name what you're working on. You want to make sure you can find that quickly. So I'm going to name this I matte for I material. And my blend 2, I'm going to call this shirt matte. And I'm going to turn down the, let's see here, turn up the eccentricity, which spreads out your specularity because I don't want that shirt to be shiny. And I will turn down the specular roll-off so it's not too shiny as well. And for the color, I'm going to go to File. And again, it's always a good idea to remember where you save your stuff. And again, it's best to put your stuff in the folder you're working in. In this case, it's Source Images. And yeah, I'm just putting it over here. And the moment I put my shirt matte on this, yep, she's a punk fighter, all right. Although I'm not sure if she's really a punk. She could be a very nice girl. But, or maybe she could be a punk. Haven't decided yet. Okay, now, the last one that's here is the head UV. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky because, again, we want to make sure that we add a very specific kind of color for the head, but also a different color for these areas over here. And also wouldn't be a bad idea to add specific color for other areas, like for lips and for the inner part of our mouth, so to speak. So, once again, it wouldn't be a bad idea to select where we want to add in our skin color. We'll do that one first because that one's pretty important. Now the way that I'm doing this is, I'm using quick selection. Again, if you hold down Option or Alt, depending on whether you're using a Mac or PC. Now be prepared, you might need to select beyond the borders, because the last thing we want is to be a black line where your seams are supposed to be. But at the very least, we have an area where we can get started. Now ideally, if you have a Wacom tablet and stylus, this is going to be a little bit easier. But if you don't have one, because again we did have to kind of set some of this stuff up at the last second, that's fine. Oop, that is such an undo. Yeah, but if you don't have a Wacom tablet and stylus, that's fine. You just have to do this with a mouse. But this is one of the reasons why I just went for the color immediately. Just didn't want to have to deal with a lot of this. Oop, that is such an undo. And again, it's just going to take a moment or two. By the way, deselect or just get your hand off the mouse every so often. It would really stink to have to do everything completely over again. This is the reason why I saved this one for last, because it is one of the more challenging spots. Okay, so that looks like I selected most, if not all of it. Oop, that's an undo. Let's see, I'm going to grow a little bit. Oop, too much. Yep, we'll just have to do this the old-fashioned way. Okay, so now that I've selected all of that, I'm going to choose kind of a tannish color for my girl. Of course, you're free to go with whatever direction you wish. Looks like I'm still going to have to get a couple areas, but that's okay. Deselecting. And I'm making sure that's on its new layer. Again, I'm just going a little bit beyond. If you're trying to go for something human, you're going to have to take a lot of time and effort to get all these areas. But I just want to basically go a little bit beyond the borders, so to speak, so I don't have any kind of weird black lines for the back of my skull. So that looks pretty good. Yeah, this area definitely have to go a little bit beyond, but that's okay. And again, if necessary, you could always make a copy of the background. And just, again, use the lighten mode to make sure you don't go a little bit too overboard with this. Good, I'm using the paintbrush with this. Now, try not to go too overboard if you can. There's another way you could approach this too, which I'm going to show very shortly, in case you don't want to have to do all the selecting that I had to. Okay, there we are. Okay, the other way that you could approach this, if this isn't your cup of tea, so to speak, is, well, first off, I need to change the color. I'm going to add a little bit of a tint of red if I can. Just bring this down a little bit. This might be a little bit too much, but I think it's okay. So yeah, I could basically just paint around here. Going to make sure I have a new layer for this, by the way. In some cases, this might just be easier to paint this directly. If you do have a Wacom, it does make the process a lot easier, though. Then just paint away. Fantastic. Okay. Then I'm going to make a new layer specifically for another spot, although I don't really need to change the color, so that's kind of nice. This is going to be for the lips. Just want to add a smidge of color over here. Yeah, that's way too much, so I'm just, or way too high, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Once again, the reason why I know this is because I've had some experience working with these UVs before, so at least I have an idea of how to approach this. And again, if it ends up being a little too much, you could always erase a couple spots. That should be good enough for now. So this one, so that's going to be skin. This is going to be called inner. This one's going to be called lips. And this last area is going to be lashes, because I do want to add a little bit of black to this area over here. Of course, it helps if you make sure you select the right brush for this. Yep, there we go. Now again, this is where it gets tougher, so I might actually save this for another time, because I want to make sure that I could get through at least this basic part with everyone. I'm going to go a little bit further, I think. Yep, there we go. Okay. Again, this is why knowing what's what in your UVs is so important, because it makes this so much easier. Fantastic. Oop, just a little sliver. There we go. Perfect. Now I got to do the same thing for the other side, so that kind of stinks, but kind of comes with the territory as well, so que sera, sera, so to speak. Oop. Gonna turn this off for a moment. There we go. Okay, so just gonna go to this part over here. I gets you to your eyedropper tool. B gets me back to my brush. Gotta paint this area, so sorry about that. There we are. And now I'm back in my lashes layer and painting this. It's nice when there's an easy button, but sometimes it's just a little bit of elbow grease that'll get you there. Okay, I think that should do it. So I'm going to turn this part off. Yeah, this should work out okay. I'm going to save this as head UV, head color. Save this up. And yeah, let's take a look at how this looks. Going to continue. Once again, I'm going to make myself a new blend. Put this on my head. Probably want to turn down the eccentricity just a smidge. Oop, turn up the eccentricity a smidge. Turn down the specular roll-off because that will make it less shiny. You still want there to be a little shininess. Definitely want to turn off the reflectivity. And I'll definitely want to do that for my shirt as well. Going back here. I'll leave the reflectivity on my eye. Just a little lower. Going to call this head skin. And yeah, just basically put on the color. Hit the little checker box over here. Hit File. Hit the little settings box. And add color. And there we are. Yeah, I definitely need to fix up the size of the lips a little bit. I'll do that a little bit later. But otherwise, not too shabby. Now, if you get this far and you have your three objects done, that's fantastic. If you do have the time, I would strongly recommend actually unwrapping all the other parts. But if you don't have time, that's not the biggest of deals. But you will need to make sure that everything has a surface to it. So for example, the hair was actually brown, so I would make an actual surface. A blend should be fine. Although I would turn up the eccentricity in this case. Yeah, there we go. Definitely turn down the reflectivity because that's really unnecessary at this time. And I'd also make it for the other parts. So if you need a little refresher on how to do some of this stuff, this isn't a bad time for this. I'm going to name each of these the material that's supposed to be going with. I'll call this skin. And actually what I might do with this one is I might actually make a copy of my head skin. and I hit Shift-D to do that. Now the reason why I did this is I wanted the same information for the head skin in terms of its eccentricity, specular roll-off, so that the skin remains consistent. Only thing I need to do here there we go, is just make sure that the color is similar to what I had previously. I could do that. I could just get a good angle for this. Yep, there we go. Just by using the eyedropper tool, select the actual color here, and bam. Relatively easy peasy. Did not mean to actually turn that off though, so that was unfortunate. But I think you get the general idea of how you can approach the other parts. I'm going to save this so I don't have to do that stuff over again. I'm just going to make 2 more quick little blends. Oh, if you ever have to get rid of a surface or material, just select the material of choice, hit delete. There you go. Doing the same thing over here, basically selecting the pants, and I'm going to make that, at the very least, a very dark gray. I think I might actually keep the specularity and a little bit of shininess to that as well. And I definitely want the boots to be a little bit different, so I'm going to keep that as is. Let's see. I'll keep that that way for now, but at the very least, once all your surface work is done, your character should definitely look a lot more finished. Now, there's still more stuff I could do with this in terms of fixing up a couple parts. Next lesson, we'll go over how to make some very simple eyelashes. There is a reason why we didn't do those yet. It's going to be when we get into working with facial expressions, specifically making controllers for said facial expressions, and start to work on bones. But if you get to something similar to what we have over here, you're in great shape. Basically, just 3 areas that we can put in our own custom textures, and a couple areas that if it ends up being like one color throughout the entire thing, as long as you can control the shininess, reflectivity, and stuff like that, a blend is a good starter surface for that. You should be in good shape. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to show. So thank you for watching this lecture. If you do have any questions, please email me or message me, and hopefully you found this educational. So again, we'll talk to you guys on the next one.